There is something happening inside your life right now that you cannot see, cannot touch, and most of the time, you don't even notice it. Yet it controls almost everything you do. The way you wake up, the way you think, the way you react, the decisions you make, even the results you get. It feels like you are in control, but in reality, a large part of your life is running automatically. Silent patterns, repeated behaviors, actions that feel normal but are actually shaping your future every single day. This is the hidden force called habit. And once you understand how it works, you realize something powerful. Your life is not the result of what you do once in a while. It is the result of what you do repeatedly without thinking. And that means if you can change your habits, you can change your entire life. Alex never questioned this before. For him, life was just a series of actions. Wake up, check phone, go through the day, complete tasks, scroll at night, sleep, repeat. It felt normal. Everyone around him lived the same way. But deep inside, there was a feeling he could not ignore. Progress was slow. Energy was inconsistent. Some days he felt focused. Other days he felt distracted without any clear reason. It felt random, unpredictable, until one day, he noticed something strange. His actions were repeating in patterns. The same triggers, the same behaviors, the same outcomes. And once he saw it, he could not unsee it. Because suddenly, his life did not feel random anymore. It felt programmed. Charles Duhigg revealed something that completely changes how you see behavior. Every habit follows a simple loop. A cue, a routine, and a reward. First, something triggers the behavior. It could be a time of day, a feeling, a situation, or even a thought. That trigger leads to a routine, an action that you perform almost automatically. And then comes the reward, the benefit your brain receives, which reinforces the habit. Over time, this loop becomes stronger. It becomes faster. It becomes automatic. And eventually, you don't even realize you are doing it. This is why habits feel so difficult to change. Because they are not just actions. They are wired patterns inside your brain. Alex started observing this loop in his own life. He noticed how often he checked his phone without thinking. A small moment of boredom, a quick scroll, a temporary distraction, and then it repeated again and again. He noticed how stress triggered certain behaviors, how certain times of the day created specific patterns. And slowly, he began to understand something powerful. His habits were not random. They were structured. And once he understood the structure, he realized something even more important. If habits follow a pattern, they can be changed by changing the pattern. This is where the real shift begins. Because most people try to break bad habits by force. They rely on motivation, on willpower, on temporary effort. But that rarely works. Because the habit loop is still there. The cue still exists. The reward is still desired. And unless you change the structure, the habit comes back. This is why lasting change requires a different approach. Instead of removing a habit, you replace the routine while keeping the same cue and reward. You don't fight the pattern, you redesign it. And that is what makes change sustainable. Alex tested this idea in a simple way. Instead of trying to stop his habits completely, he started replacing them. When boredom triggered distraction, he replaced scrolling with something more intentional. When stress triggered avoidance, he replaced it with action. At first, it felt difficult, but over time, something started changing. The same triggers began producing different behaviors, and those behaviors started creating different results. That was the moment everything clicked, because now, he was not controlled by his habits anymore. He was shaping them. Now think about this carefully. Every habit in your life is either building you or limiting you. Every repeated action is shaping your future. And the most powerful part is that you don't need to change everything at once. You just need to understand the pattern and take control of it. Because once you understand how habits work, you stop being controlled by them, and you start controlling your life. And what you are about to discover next will take this understanding to an even deeper level. There is one missing piece in the habit loop that most people never understand, and without it, nothing truly makes sense. You can know the cue, you can see the routine, you can even recognize the reward, but still feel powerless to change your behavior. Because the real driver behind every habit is not the action itself. It is the craving that builds before the action. That invisible urge that pulls you toward a behavior, that feeling of anticipation, that tension in your mind that wants to be satisfied. This is what makes habits stick. not the reward alone, but the desire for that reward before it even happens. And once this craving is created, your brain starts predicting it. It starts expecting it. And that expectation is what turns simple actions into powerful habits. Alex started noticing this in a way that completely changed his perspective. It was not the phone that was pulling him. It was the feeling before picking it up. A slight boredom, a small gap of time, a need for stimulation. That moment created a craving, and without even thinking, his hand moved automatically. The action felt like a choice, but it was actually a response to that internal urge. And once he saw this clearly, something clicked. The habit was not the problem. The craving was. Because if the craving stays, the behavior will eventually return, no matter how much you try to resist it. This is where Charles Duhigg reveals a deeper truth about habits. Craving is what powers the loop. It is what makes your brain remember the pattern. It is what makes the routine feel necessary. Without craving, habits lose their strength. But once craving is attached to a cue, the loop becomes automatic. And over time, your brain starts creating that craving even before the reward arrives. It predicts the feeling, it prepares for it, and it pushes you toward the action. This is why habits feel so strong. Not because they are logical, but because they are emotional. Alex began experimenting with this idea in his daily life. Instead of focusing only on changing the action, he started focusing on understanding the craving. Every time he felt the urge to do something, he paused and observed it. What exactly am I feeling right now? Is it boredom, stress, distraction, or something else? And that awareness alone created a small gap, a moment where he could choose differently. Because now, the habit was not automatic anymore. It was visible. And once something becomes visible, it becomes controllable. This is where the real mastery begins. Because you cannot eliminate craving, but you can redirect it. Your brain will always seek satisfaction, always look for reward, always move towards something that feels good. But you can decide what action fulfills that craving. Instead of trying to remove the urge, you replace the response. You take the same craving and connect it to a different routine. And over time, your brain starts accepting the new pattern. The craving remains, but the behavior changes. And that is what creates lasting transformation. There is another powerful layer to this. Your environment plays a huge role in shaping your cravings. What you see, what you hear, what surrounds you, all of it influences what your brain desires. If your environment is filled with distractions, your cravings will follow. If your environment is structured for growth, your habits will align with it. This is why change is not just internal, it is external as well. You design your environment in a way that supports the habits you want to build. And when your surroundings support your actions, discipline becomes easier. Alex noticed this clearly. The more he controlled his environment, the easier it became to control his habits. Small changes created big impact. Less distraction, more focus. Less noise, more clarity. And slowly, his cravings started aligning with his goals. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently. And that consistency started building something powerful. Now think about this carefully. Every action you take is driven by something deeper. A craving, an urge, a desire for a certain feeling. And if you can understand that feeling, you can control the action that follows. Because habits are not just about what you do. They are about what you feel before you do it. And the moment you learn to control that feeling, you take control of everything that comes after. And what you are about to discover next will show you how small changes create massive results over time. There is a powerful idea that can completely change how you see growth, progress, and success. Most people believe that to improve their life, they need to change everything at once. They try to fix multiple habits, create complex routines, and push themselves in every direction. But this approach rarely works. It feels overwhelming, it drains energy, and eventually it breaks. Because real change does not happen through massive effort, it happens through the right focus. And this is where keystone habits come in. These are not just any habits. These are the habits that trigger a chain reaction. The habits that automatically improve other areas of your life without extra effort. And once you identify them, everything starts to shift. Alex never thought that one small change could have such a big impact. For him, progress always meant doing more. More tasks, more effort, more pressure. But despite all that effort, results were inconsistent. That is when he discovered the idea of keystone habits. Instead of trying to fix everything, he focused on one thing. One habit that could influence everything else. And what he found was surprising. When that one habit improved, other habits started improving naturally, without force, without struggle, as if everything was connected. Charles Duhigg explains that keystone habits work because they change how you see yourself. They create a shift in identity. When you start doing something consistently, even something small, it sends a signal to your brain. It tells you that you are capable of change, that you are in control, and that belief starts spreading. It affects your decisions, your actions, your mindset. Suddenly, you don't just feel like someone who is trying to improve. You feel like someone who is improving. And that difference is powerful. Alex decided to start with a simple keystone habit. Something small but consistent. Not something extreme, not something difficult, just something he could repeat every day. And that consistency started building confidence. That confidence started influencing other areas. He became more disciplined in his work, more focused in his thinking, more aware of his actions. And all of it came from one small change. That is when he realized something important. You don't need to change your entire life at once. You just need to change the right habit. This is where most people make a mistake. They choose habits that are too big, too difficult, too unrealistic. And when they fail, they lose motivation. But keystone habits are different. They are simple, they are manageable, but they are powerful because of their impact. They create momentum. And once momentum builds, progress becomes easier. Because now, you are not relying on motivation. You are relying on movement. There is another layer to this that most people ignore. Keystone habits also create structure. They bring order to your day. They reduce chaos. And when your life becomes more structured, your mind becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. Focus improves. And slowly, your entire system starts working better. Not because you are forcing it, but because it is aligned. Alex noticed this clearly. The more consistent he became with his keystone habit, the more stable his routine became. And that stability created something powerful. It reduced distractions. It increased clarity. It made progress visible. And that visibility reinforced his belief. It created a loop of growth. A cycle where small actions led to bigger results, and bigger results led to stronger habits. Now think about this carefully. What if you stopped trying to change everything? What if you focused on one habit that could influence everything else? One habit that builds discipline, creates momentum, and strengthens your identity. Over time, that one habit would start changing other areas of your life. Without pressure, without confusion, without overwhelm. Because success is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about doing the right thing consistently. And once you find that one habit, everything else starts falling into place. And what you are about to discover next will show you how to make these habits permanent. There is a reason why most people fail to change their habits, even when they know exactly what to do. It is not because they lack knowledge. It is not because they lack motivation. It is because they try to change their actions without changing their identity. They try to wake up early, stay disciplined, avoid distractions, and build consistency, but deep inside, they still see themselves as the same person. And that creates conflict, because your actions will always align with how you see yourself. If your identity does not change, your habits will always return to their old patterns. This is the hidden layer of habit change that most people completely ignore, and once you understand it, everything starts to make sense. Alex experienced this again and again. He would start strong, stay consistent for a few days, sometimes even weeks, but eventually he would fall back into old habits. At first, it felt like a lack of discipline, but when he looked deeper, he realized something different. His actions were changing, but his self-image was not. He still saw himself as someone who struggled with consistency, someone who got distracted easily, someone who could not maintain long-term habits. And because of that belief, his behavior kept returning to match that identity. That realization was uncomfortable, but also powerful, because it meant the real problem was not what he was doing, but how he saw himself. Charles Duhigg explains that habits are not just routines, they are part of your identity. They are reinforced by what you believe about yourself. And this is why real change requires a shift in identity. Instead of saying, "I am trying to build this habit," you start seeing yourself as someone who already follows that habit. That shift may feel small, but it changes everything. Because now, your actions are not forced. They are aligned. And when actions align with identity, they become natural. Alex started applying this idea in a simple but powerful way. Instead of focusing only on what he needed to do, he focused on who he needed to become. Every small action became proof. Every time he followed his habit, he was not just completing a task, he was reinforcing a new identity. And slowly, that identity started becoming stronger. It was no longer something he was trying to build. It was something he was becoming. And that difference changed everything. This is where habits become permanent. Not when you force them, not when you rely on motivation, but when they become part of who you are. Because once something becomes your identity, it no longer feels like effort. It feels normal. And that is the goal. Not temporary change, but lasting transformation. There is another powerful element to this process. Belief. Your brain needs evidence to accept a new identity. And that evidence comes from repetition. Small wins, consistent actions, repeated behavior. Over time, these small proofs build a strong belief. And that belief strengthens the identity. And that identity drives future actions. It becomes a cycle. A powerful loop where action reinforces identity and identity drives action. Alex could see this clearly. The more he stayed consistent, the more confident he became. The more confident he became, the easier it was to stay consistent. And that created momentum. A momentum that did not rely on external factors. A momentum that came from within. Now imagine this. Every day, your actions are not just tasks. They are votes for the person you are becoming. Every small decision, every repeated behavior, every moment of discipline is shaping your identity. And over time, that identity becomes your reality. Because in the end, habits are not just about what you do. They are about who you become. And once you become the right person, the right habits follow automatically. And what you are about to discover next will bring all of this together into one powerful transformation. There is a truth that most people never fully understand. And because of that, they spend their entire lives trying to change outcomes instead of changing the system that creates those outcomes. They focus on results, on goals, on big achievements, but they ignore the small daily actions that quietly shape everything. And that is why change feels difficult, inconsistent, and temporary. Because when you focus only on results, you are always chasing something outside of you. But when you focus on habits, you start building something inside you. Something stable, something reliable, something that keeps working even when motivation disappears. This is where everything connects. The cue, the craving, the routine, the reward, the identity. The keystone habits. All of it is part of one system. And once you understand this system, you stop trying randomly and start building intentionally. Alex sat back and looked at his journey. From the moment he realized that his life was running on patterns, to understanding how habits are formed, to learning how cravings drive behavior, to discovering the power of small changes, to finally shifting his identity. It all connected in a way that felt simple but powerful. Nothing magical had happened. No sudden transformation. No overnight success. But something deeper had changed. His awareness. His control. His direction. And that was enough to change everything. Because once you become aware of your habits, you can no longer ignore them. And once you start controlling them, your life begins to move in a completely different direction. This is where most people stop too early. They try for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and when they don't see immediate results, they lose interest. But what they fail to see is that habits work silently. They don't show their full effect immediately. They build slowly, step by step, repetition by repetition. And then one day, the results become visible. But by that time, most people have already given up. This is why patience is not optional. It is necessary. Because the real power of habits is not in the moment, it is in the long term. Alex understood this now. He stopped looking for instant results. He stopped expecting immediate change. Instead, he focused on consistency, on showing up every day, on repeating the right actions, even when it felt small, even when it felt insignificant. And over time, those small actions started building something powerful. A system, a structure, a way of living that did not depend on mood or motivation. And that is when real transformation began. Now think about this carefully. Your life right now is the result of your habits. Not your intentions, not your plans, not your goals, but your habits. And that means your future will also be shaped by what you repeatedly do from this point forward. The question is not whether habits matter. The question is whether you are choosing them consciously. Because every time you repeat an action, you are reinforcing a pattern. Every time you follow a habit, you are strengthening it. And every time you ignore it, you are allowing it to control you. That is the reality most people never face. But once you face it, you gain something powerful: control. And if this made you think differently, if you felt even a small shift in how you see your habits, then take that as your starting point. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait for motivation. Start with one small habit. Stay consistent. Let it build. Let it grow. Because that is how real change happens. And if you are ready to take control of your habits, then take one more step right now. Like this video so more people can discover these powerful ideas. Share it with someone who needs this change in their life. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next level of your growth journey. Because this is not just about one book. This is about building a system that transforms your life. And once you understand that system, you stop hoping for change, and you start creating it.